Hello, everybody, and welcome to Well Women Wednesday. My name is Dacia Moore. I'm a licensed professional counselor as well as executive director of Gateway of Hope. So glad you are joining us for this Well Women Wednesday, either live or you're watching the recording. And we're coming to you every Wednesday from 12 to 12:30 in Central Standard Time. So let me get my PowerPoint ready. There we go. All right, and today's discussion is going to be on stress. The COVID-19 pandemic, your physical health, your mental health. Ms. Gail and I were just talking before we jumped on the call about the stress response and what are some of the things we normally do when we are stressed, and we're going to talk about that today. But first, we have our Black History moment. And today I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Joycelyn Elders. She was the first African American and the second woman to be sworn in as a Surgeon General of this United States. During her tenure as Surgeon General, she advocated for universal health care coverage, comprehensive health education, including sex education in schools. Now, her views were controversial, and she was asked to resign after about 15 months on the job. However, that does not diminish her achievements, her many, many achievements. Dr. Elders was the first person in the state of Arkansas to become a board certified pediatric endocrinologist. Spell that, endocrinologist. Okay, just kidding. She conducted an extensive amount of research on growth and diabetes in youth, as well as issues related to teen pregnancy and congenital abnormalities. Additional efforts by Dr. Elders included her extensive work to address minority health issues. She led the Arkansas Department of Health, where she focused her efforts on improving minority health, which led her to establish an internal Office of Minority Health within the Arkansas Department of Health. Currently, Dr. Elders is a professor emeritus at the University of Arkansas for Medical Science. And that is our Black History moment for today, Dr. Joycelyn Elders. All right, just so that you know, Well Women Wednesday is sponsored by Gateway of Hope, which is a women's nonprofit counseling and life coaching center with a mission to lead women to discover hope, pursue healing, and live in wholeness through counseling, coaching, and support groups. So be sure to connect with us on social media. That's how we get the word out about our different events. And tonight, we have an event at 7:30 p.m., Building Unshakable Self-Confidence. That is part of our Lifeline to Hope series, life coaching series, particularly for women who have been adversely affected, who have been financially adversely affected due to the pandemic. And that is brought to you by Gateway of Hope. So, ground rules, just real quick. This is not a counseling session. This is educational. We are all about women's mental health, and we want you to be better informed. But if you get triggered by something that is said, be sure to get some help by calling one of these phone numbers, and just know that this session is being recorded. All right, so let's get down to today's discussion. Stress. All of us have it. All of us experience it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, except when it's in a pandemic. So today we're going to talk about, and I'm going to share with you some very interesting information. Stress in America is a annual report by the American Psychological Association. That is the title of it. This year, Stress in America 2020, they have used the subtitle, A National Mental Health Crisis. Most people in mental health are anticipating a tsunami of mental health issues once the pandemic health concerns have been put to rest through the vaccination. There is going to be fallout or anticipated fallout from a mental health perspective. And so we want to get ahead of that. I want you to to think about how stress has affected you. And today I'm going to give you some tips on managing your stress. So we're dealing with stress in the adult, you, between the ages of 30 and 75, because according to this report, the people who are most negatively affected by stress are young adults and teenagers. No surprise, their world has been turned upside down. So, in future sessions, we're going to specifically talk about young adults and teenagers, but I want you to be healthy so that you can go and talk to them and help them. The other group that um, has been adversely affected are pregnant women. Can you imagine being pregnant during this time and how much fear and anxiety about, is something going to happen to my baby? Can I breastfeed? Is my baby going to be okay? What about when she's born or he's born? What kind of, and their immune systems are not developed yet. What risk am I taking? It's a very scary time. So, we care about women. We love women. We love men too, but Gateway of Hope is all about women's health and women's mental health. So we're going to talk about those in future sessions. So last week, we talked about the pandemic and your physical health and mental health. And as of last week, I did some checking, and over 417,000 people have died in America because of or due to the pandemic. 27 million cases. And worldwide, 2.36 million people have died. 107 million cases. Now, all of those people have family members and friends who are now struggling, not only with the disruption of the pandemic in their own lives, but the grief and loss of having lost a loved one and or a friend, with the caveat that they were not able to hold their hand, they were not able to kiss them goodbye, they were not able to hug them. I remember when my mom passed in 2003, I was there, I was by her bedside, my girls and I, every day, holding her hand, getting her water, um, hugging her when I could, just being there at the point of transition. And people during this pandemic couldn't do that. And how much anger I would have, I think, if I couldn't. And the anger is not really directed at anybody, but there is a sense of unfairness. And so the mental health consequences of that is significant. And not only the grief and loss, but people are talking about, I feel like I'm at a breaking point. I have to keep it together. The stress of trying to maintain. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I don't know if we need to try to maintain our regular normal schedule. Probably not. We are worried all of the time, feeling guilty, exhausted, in despair. We're worried about our children. We're worried about our husbands. We're worried about our finances. We're worried about our job. And if you're a mom, it just doesn't feel like you're doing enough and you're failing at everything. I have heard that over and over again. I am failing at everything. Not a good place to be. So let me share with you some stats from the report that I just referred. Not surprisingly, 78% of the people that were part of their survey say that the pandemic has been a significant source of stress. 2 in 3 adults say that they have experienced increased stress over the course of the pandemic. And not only have we emotionally felt it, but our behavior has shown it. Increased tension. We have muscle spasms, muscle aches, migraine headaches. We're snapping or getting angry very quickly, which often means mood swings or screaming and yelling at a loved one. So the stress that we feel is coming out. It's overwhelming. It's difficult to manage. We don't know what the future brings. And not only is it coming out emotionally and relationally, so all of these things affect our physical health, our emotional health, our relational health, and we have 31% of the people who are saying they've had disruptive sleep patterns. Raise your hand if you've had disruptive sleep patterns. You can't sleep. You're so stressed out. You're so worried. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. How is this all going to work? And as women of faith, we know that it's important to hold on to our faith during this time. We are being tested. We have a great opportunity to pass the test and hold on to our faith, but it is still a struggle. Eating more unhealthy foods. Miss Gail and I were talking about this before we jumped on this call. Craving salt, craving sugar, um, craving wine, craving unhealthy things, okay, which has caused us to have significant weight changes. Help, I need somebody. Help, not just anybody. I am here to give you some help. We are here as a community of women to help each other. So you will have an opportunity to not only share maybe the struggle that you've had, but also the help that you can give to our community. So I want to make sure that we spend some time having a discussion and it's not just a lecture, but I do want to share with you a strategy and to remind you of the most important strategy. Number one, and we talk about this all the time, recognize the stress in your body, in your emotional state earlier. If you don't do anything else, you recognize the stress in yourself earlier. You know, we're so busy doing this, doing that, doing that. We are not taking the time to check in with ourselves. And that is the strategy that I'm going to share with you today. Recognize your stress level, admit it. Don't push it away. Don't try to push through. Just say, you know what? I am feeling up to here right now or up to here. Okay. We want to really get it a little bit lower than that, but admit that you are feeling a certain kind of way, as the young people say, and then do something to help yourself manage yourself. That way, you are protecting your physical health by being less stressed out and having those stress hormones pulsing through your body when they don't need to be, when you can calm yourself down. You will help your personal emotional health by just calming down. And number three, you'll help improve your relationships because you won't be snapping off and angry and yelling. Ah, right? Okay. This is an environment where you must start taking the time to step back, calm down, so that you are okay. It's not business as usual. I know that you know this, but are you doing it? That's the question. Or are you just doing the regular as if it's normal and then you notice that your relationships are struggling? So this tip is important to recognize, admit, and then address, do something to help you change or manage how you're feeling. So the stress meter, it could be the depression meter, it could be the anxiety meter, it could be the fear meter, it can be used for any negative emotion. And basically, it is a way for you to do a self-check, for you to be insightful about how you're feeling. And basically, the stress meter or whatever meter in terms of the negative emotion that you have is on a scale of 1 to 10. What number would you give your stress right now, last week, last month? When you give it a number, when you make yourself contemplate, okay, how am I feeling now? And when you give it a number, you're making a judgment. And that self reflection and that judgment brings to your awareness where you are. And then when you are aware, you can decide, okay, I need to have a cup of tea. I need to just step back for a minute. You can do something to be more mindful. So I am interested to know, and this is the I'm opening up for discussion now. In terms of your stress number, what number would you give your stress during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, at the beginning? Let's say last April. Oh, and by the way, sidebar, happy Ash Wednesday to those of you who are celebrating Ash Wednesday today. I grew up as a Catholic. Ash Wednesday is a marker for us. So congratulations, or not congratulations, but happy Ash Wednesday. Okay. So what number would you give your stress during the COVID-19 pandemic at the beginning, this past summer, and then this past week? So I'm going to stop my screen share, and I'm interested to know. And then after we share that, Ms. Gail, I'd like you to share your message, because I bet you have a message that's right on point for us in dealing with our stress. But who would like to share your number? Hi, Gloria. Okay, well, I'll start. Yesterday, or maybe I think well, Monday I got some bad news about a friend of mine who passed on, and that made me very sad. So I would have to say Monday was a sad day. So on my meter, not necessarily stress, but my sadness meter was pretty high. I'd say probably about a 7 or 8, because I feel sad for my friend. She was married for 30 years, and it's a change in life for her. But then yesterday, I started thinking about all the things I had to do, and then that compounded stress of my family live in Houston, and so all that's going on in Houston, and I can't be there. Mama Bear wants to go and rescue, and I can't, you know. And so I did find myself yesterday really just, the Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures." My pastor has been talking about, if the Lord is your shepherd, you have everything you need. And sometimes he makes us lie down. And we don't want to lie down. We want to keep going. But yesterday, I had to make myself sit down and just take it slow, because it was up here. Stress, sadness, all of those emotions. And so it's a recognition of our humanness that I'm talking about. It's a recognition of our need to take care of ourselves. And, we want to be superwoman. And maybe you were before the pandemic, but this pandemic has inserted a tremendous amount of change for us. And we've got to recognize it and be okay with dialing it down. Yeah. Any thoughts or comments to that? Otherwise, Miss Gail, I want you to jump in. Miss Pastor Carla?
I just wanted to say, like, I feel like it's been kind of a roller coaster, like in how you said throughout the pandemic, because again, in addition to the pandemic, we've had not so normal life, like, so anything extra, like we're already operating at a higher level of stress, and then anything extra, like for instance, in the fall, on top of everything, my husband had back surgery, and like, all the things that layer on. And so Monday was very stressful. I didn't sleep well. And what you just said helped me, like as you were saying about we have to give ourselves permission not to go back to what was normal for us to carry, because we're already carrying something, weights, of the people that, first of all, in our own lives, but then also certainly, be ministering to others and caring for other people. We're already operating at a higher level than our norm. So when you said that, that was just, thank you for just saying that, because it helps me to say, okay, I give myself permission to not go back to what I normally feel like I could carry, because I realize that I'm operating already at a higher level with just the normal stuff that the pandemic has brought, in addition to all the extra things that have come along with it. So thank you. That was very helpful.
Absolutely. The series that our pastor is doing about the Lord is our shepherd, he's teaching us about sheep. Because if the Lord is our shepherd, then we are sheep, right? Sheep are dumb. They'll follow just about anything. They will eat themselves into bursting, and they will keep eating and keep walking unless you make them sit down. But they will hear and listen to the shepherd's voice. And I think that this pandemic, it's been advantageous in some ways and in some ways not. But if we take the opportunity to slow down and hear the shepherd's voice.
So I will echo the roller coaster feeling, right? And interestingly, in April, let's say, when by that time, most of us had pushed pause, right? We were in a shelter in place environment. My stress level at that point was lower because the pace was slower. And it was kind of like people were starting to be intentional, but there was a lot of uncertainty. So the roller coaster push pull was the uncertainty of what is happening. Like, right? We didn't really know what this was and what was happening and how to really deal with it. But on the other side of it, what I saw was, kids going back home, having dinner around the dinner table, right? Families not just running from thing to thing to thing. So in those first couple of weeks, there was a little bit of interesting, what's the word I want to say? It wasn't really hope, but there was a positive anticipation of what if life could actually slow down in a healthy way for families? What if they actually saw this as an opportunity to value what was really important? And what if it gave them an opportunity to see what they didn't see, which was on the hamster wheel where they were running all over the place. And, moms in particular, just running from thing to thing to thing. So there was a little bubble of time that felt like, okay, let's just calm it down and let's just see if we can learn from this. But then, the roller coaster of, is this short term, is this long term? Remember when we thought, there was announcements of by 4th of July, this is all going to be over and we're all going to be back to normal. And so there's also this short-term thinking, like, okay, it's, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, 4th of July is going to come. And then of course it came and went. And then the reality sunk in of this is a much longer epidemic than what we had thought. So then I kind of go through like, I hadn't thought about it, Dacia, in like these seasons, but I do remember the season of being weary, like tired of it. I'm just tired of it, right? And I want to go back to normal, but I know I can't go back to normal. I can't move around as normal. I can't go visit and see the people I want to see as normal. There was a weariness to it. And now I feel the weariness pulled with a few attention today that I hadn't felt before, which is let's just force going back to normal. Like, let's just do it when it's not safe. It's not okay. There's this little bit of, well, there's a few people who have been vaccinated, right? And so we're just ready and we're over it. And so there's people who are just like, I'm over it and I'm just going to go back to normal, whether it's safe or not. And that's making me more uncomfortable than even in the beginning, where people were like denying it and saying, I don't want to wear a mask. Now they're saying I'm choosing not to wear a mask because I'm over it. And that's, I mean, I'm starting to just see more of that. I'm seeing companies pushing a little more to bring people back into the office, and they're not ready. In fact, potentially CEOs or leaders are saying, get them back in the office, and the leadership team is not ready, personally, not ready. So therefore, they are being squished between the CEO saying, get them back in, and the leadership team here not having their own feelings to deal with, but also dealing with the people below them where they don't want to convey a message that they don't personally feel. So I feel like right now, my personal stress is the empathy toward that. Like, I feel like I'm carrying some of that stress, trying to help people deal with it, because I get those calls of, you know, what should I say to my leader because I don't want to go back in, just in the role that I'm in, and feeling their stress. So I can feel me taking on their stress, kind of like that secondhand trauma feeling, right? And I think many of us are in that. Just for Christian women, we want to support others. We probably get calls of, hey, can I just talk to you, right? I just need somebody to talk to. I need a friend to talk to. But I don't leave those calls feeling good that I helped. I leave those calls carrying their backpack of rocks. Right. And I try not to, you know, I know better than to, but I ache for them. I ache for those people who don't have the coping skills, and I ache for the people who really are dealing with some big things, really big things. And it's scary. It's really scary.
Yeah. Just a sidebar, we're at 12:30. We're going to continue the conversation. If you can stay on for a few more minutes, I invite you to do that. We intentionally make it 30 minutes so you can jump on during your, have half of your lunch hour, and then the other half you can take care of yourself and have a healthy lunch or walk around. But I do want to continue the conversation. Miss Gail hopefully she'll be back shortly. I used to work with Miss Gail many years ago, and we did a women's group together, and she had messages. She calls them messages, and it was uncanny. It was Holy Spirit driven is what it was, because every time she shared a message with the women's group, it was right. It just hit home. It just hit home. And so I'm hopeful that she'll be jumping back onto the call. I don't know if she got the rolling, that the rolling electricity outage, right.
Let's add a little more stress, right? A little more stress of weather and rolling outages.
I know, it's just crazy. So we'll see, we'll be flexible. And that's the thing about this time is, and we talked about this in January, I will statements. I will adapt and adjust. I will be flexible. I will be fine. God is with me. God is fighting for me. God is fighting with me. He will give me the victory. Saying those things every morning, every evening, writing them in your journal. Journaling is a big help because it gets it out of your head and onto paper. And when you see it on paper, and journaling on paper is different than journaling in your phone. And I'm not knocking journaling in your phone, but there's a different energy when you write it and you see your own handwriting. Very much, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where somebody has passed on and then you find a letter that they've written. I have several letters from my mom, and there's energy in that letter, and certainly in the connection that I have with the person who's written it. So don't discount journaling. That's very, very important. So let me share my screen and just kind of finish up some of what we were talking about, because I do want you to know, of course, let's see. I do want you to know what we're going to be talking about. So next week, we're going to be talking about stress and the young adult, your young adult. The Gen Z, young adults and older teenagers are the ones who have to, the ones who are experiencing the most stress. Women between the ages of 17 to 22 are the highest group, or are reporting the highest stress levels of any group of women in the study. So we're going to spend some time next week talking about stress in the young adult or your young adult. Then we'll talk about stress in your teen on March 3rd, stress in your school age child on March 10th, and then on March 17th, stress in your pregnant friend. We cannot, we want to just include women, a broad brush of women. And if there are other groups of women that that you would like to hear more about in terms of stress-related struggles and solutions, all right, we don't just talk about the struggle, we talk about solutions as well. So, Ms. Gail, you have decided to join us again. Were you were you stressed out because your computer kicked off?
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. But anyway, I don't know what happened. We have no control. So the quote that I have today, and this is just to provoke thought. Actually, I have two. So the first one is, peace is the result of retraining your mind to process life as it is, rather than as you think it should be.
Mm.
You know, we kind of talked about being stuck into what was normal. Okay, well, things are not going to be normal. We can never go back, you know, so we really have to do a lot of positive self-talk so that we are consistently striving to be in the present, but also giving us a chance to create something new. As you were talking about, was it Denise, when you were talking about families being back together? Yes, because we have no choice, you know, and so that's not necessarily a bad thing. The other one is, it is okay to not be okay, as long as you don't stay that way. So this is a conscientious, persistent effort for us to keep striving to what we need to towards what we need to be to stay sane. So for example, instead of eating, which I'm doing a lot of that, you know, so then I said, well, maybe I should do this little stretch class, you know. So, you know, it's kind of like that you have to make yourself, because it's hard to be motivated when you are in lockdown and you're looking around going, okay, I should be doing this and this and this. So that's it. That's all I got, ladies.
That's great. Yeah. Can you reread both of those, Gail?
Okay. Peace is the result of retraining your mind to process life as it is, rather than as you think it should be. The other one was, it's okay to not be okay, as long as you don't stay that way.
Wow.
Okay. And no, I didn't write those. The first one was by Wayne Dyer. The second one, I have no idea where I got that from, but unfortunately, I didn't write it.
Profound. Wow. Gives you something to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, ladies, on that note, we're going to close our Well Women Wednesday. And I certainly wish you a wonderful Wednesday. We'll be back here next Wednesday and every Wednesday for the foreseeable future, at least through March, from 12 to 12:30. It's a free conversation. Invite your friends. It's important for us to have a community of women that where we can support one another, but also talk about how to be better. Because as the quote said, it's okay to not be okay, but let's not stay that way. I'm gonna have to write that down, Ms. Gail. All right, ladies, have a wonderful Wednesday. Let me stop our recording.